Judas, who was called Maccabeus, took the place of his father, Mattathias. His brothers and all who had joined his father helped him, and they gladly fought for Israel. Judas brought great honor to his people. Like a giant, he put on his body armor. He armed himself with weapons of war and protected his camps with his sword. He was like a lion in his actions, like a lion's cub roaring for prey. He hunted down the wicked and pursued them, and he set on fire those who harmed his people. The wicked fled in fear, and all the ungodly were frightened. The cause of liberation prospered under his planning. He bitterly angered many kings. He brought Israel joy by his deeds. His memory will be blessed forever. He went throughout the towns of Judea and destroyed the wicked, turning away punishment from Israel. He was famous even to the ends of the earth, and he helped those facing death. Apollonius gathered a large army of Gentiles and Samaritans to attack Israel. When Judas heard this, he went out to meet him, and he defeated and killed him. Many were wounded and fell, and the survivors fled. Judas plundered their belongings, including the sword of Apollonius, which he used the rest of his life. When 𝗠ci𝗿, commander of the Syrian forces, heard that Judas had formed a large army of faithful men, he said, "I will make a reputation for myself and become famous in my kingdom by crushing Judas and his followers, who have scorned the king's command." So 𝗠ci𝗿 organized his troops, a large number of wicked men who sought vengeance on the Israelites. They marched as far as Beth-horon, where Judas went out to meet him with only a few men. When the Israelites saw the advancing army, they said to Judas, "How can so few of us fight against an army that is so large and strong? And we are weak, for we have eaten nothing today." Judas replied, "It is easy for many to be overpowered by a few, for it makes no difference in God's sight whether we are saved by few or many." Success in battle depends not on the size of the army but on strength that comes from God. This arrogant and wicked army has come to destroy us, our wives, and our children, and to take our belongings. But we will fight for our lives and our laws, and the Lord himself will crush them as we watch. So don't be afraid of them." As soon as Judas had finished speaking, he and his troops suddenly charged 𝗠ci𝗿 and his army and overpowered them. They pursued them from Beth-horon down to the plain. There they killed 800 soldiers, and the rest fled into Philistia. Then the Gentiles in the area feared Judas and his brothers. Even the king heard of his reputation, and all the Gentiles talked about his battles. When King Antiochus Epiphanes heard these reports, he became angry. He formed a very strong army from the forces of his entire kingdom. Opening his treasury, he paid his troops a year's wages and told them to be ready for anything. In this way, he exhausted the money in his treasury. Antiochus realized that his tax revenues were small because he had antagonized and impoverished the people when he abolished the ancient laws. He feared that he would not have enough money for all his expenses and for the gifts he liked to give. He gave more lavishly than any of the kings who had preceded him. He was very perplexed about this, so he decided to go to Persia to collect a large tax fund from those regions. So King Antiochus left Lysias, a nobleman of the royal family, to oversee the affairs of the kingdom, from the river Euphrates to the border of Egypt. Lysias was also supposed to look after the king's son Antiochus until he returned. The king gave Lysias half his soldiers and all his elephants and gave him orders concerning the people of Judea and Jerusalem. Lysias was instructed to attack them in order to crush the strength of Israel and to wipe out the people left in Jerusalem. He was to erase even the memory of them from that place. He was instructed to settle foreigners in their territory and redistribute the land to them. Then the king took the other half of the army and left Antioch, his capital city, in the 147th year of Greek rule. He crossed the river Euphrates and went through the upper provinces. Lysias chose Ptolemy Macron, son of Dorymenes, along with Nicanor and Gorgias, all capable men who were among the king's favored leaders, and sent them with 40,000 foot soldiers and 7,000 horsemen to destroy the land of Judea, as the king had ordered. So the powerful army marched out and set up camp in the plain near Emmaus. When the merchants of the surrounding area heard about it, they brought chains and large amounts of silver and gold to the camp to buy as slaves any Israelites who might be captured. Then forces from Syria and Philistia joined the army in its camp. Judas and his brothers saw that the situation was desperate, for the army had camped in their territory. They also knew that the king had given orders to completely destroy the Israelites. They said to each other, "Let us fight for our people and for our temple. Let us rescue them from ruin." Then they assembled the people for battle and prayed for God's mercy and compassion. Jerusalem was abandoned like a wilderness. None of her children entered or exited the city. The temple was trampled down. Foreigners occupied the citadel, and Gentiles made their homes there. There was no joy for Israel. The flute and harp were silent. The Israelites assembled at Mizpah near Jerusalem, since it was a traditional place of prayer for them. That day they fasted and dressed in sackcloth. They also put ashes on their heads and tore their clothes in grief. And in contrast to the Gentiles, who search for answers from the idols of their gods, the Israelites opened the book of the law to find guidance. They brought out the priestly garments, the gifts that represented the first portion of the harvest, and the tithes, and they summoned the Nazarites, who had completed their vows. They cried loudly to heaven, "What can we do with these Nazarites? Where can we take them to fulfill the law of Moses? For your temple is torn down and defiled. Your priests mourn in humiliation. The Gentiles have gathered together to destroy us. You know what their intentions are. How can we stand against them if you do not help us?" Then they sounded the trumpets and loudly cried out. After this, Judas appointed officers over the people to command groups of 1,000, 100, 50, and 10. He told those who were building houses and those soon to be married, as well as those who were planting vineyards and those who were afraid, that they should go home, just as the law of Moses instructed. Then the army moved out and set up a new camp on the south side of Emmaus. Judas said, "Prepare yourselves and be brave. Be ready early in the morning to fight these Gentiles, for they want to destroy us and our temple. It is better for us to die in battle than to see the ruin of our nation and our temple. May God's will be done."